So we're going to get on to our very first keynote speech of the day. This coming from Heath McDonald, one of our HSMAs this year, from Lancashire and South Cumbria, NHS Foundation Trust. And Heath has been doing some absolutely fantastic work, a number of projects looking at around mental health, and particularly around both neurodiversity assessment and also talking therapy. So over to you, Heath.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I presume so.
Yeah,
I'm just going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of my HSMA experience right from the beginning and to where it's brought me now, basically. So I'll very quickly get into my presentation because obviously we've got to keep to time. So I'll just share. And okay, are we seeing that okay, Dan?
I'm not.
So
Sorry.
hold on, give me a second.
Something's coming through. There we go. Yeah, that's come through. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so the title is obviously a new approach to demand and capacity planning in mental health treatment, but I'm going to touch on a few other things as well that have happened along my journey. So just bear with me. There we go. Just a quick overview. So I'm going to give you a little bit of detail about my organisational background, about the organisation that I sit within, a little bit about my role and my previous experience of working with data science. And I'll touch on the actual experience of doing HSMA and what that was like for me. I'll talk a little bit about my HSMA project, which was the first sort of real challenge that I took on in applying what I'd learnt through HSMA. Then I'm going to touch in more detail on the organisation-led project that sort of span off from that, and that'll be in quite a bit more detail. I'll tell you a little bit about the approach that I've taken. I'll also show you the app that I've developed and take you through that, and then I'll talk a little bit about the findings and the impact that it's had within my organisation. So first of all, my employer. So we're quite a large provider of community services and secure mental health inpatient services. So that covers anything from district nursing, school nursing, podiatrists, right through to community-based mental health services, and also sort of high-level secure mental health inpatient services. So we've got quite a broad spectrum of services, and we've got quite a large number of staff. I think we're somewhere around 10,000. Um, okay, so we also cover quite a big geographical area, and obviously there can be a lot of challenges associated with that, particularly because it's quite a mix of rural and urban, and you can really get out in the sticks there, and you get some really, really hard to reach populations. Um, we've got quite a big focus going on at the moment, particularly with the sort of financial challenges, look on transformation and efficiency. But obviously, there's always trying to keep at the forefront about maintaining the patient experience and always keeping that at the forefront of decisions that we make. Um, Now, one of the things we've always had problems with, as a lot of trusts, is data quality. So historically, we've not been very strong on this. We've had quite rushed system rollouts, and until recently, we didn't even have a dedicated data quality resource. And obviously, that creates a lot of challenges when you start using data. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And then we have a performance function, but they're quite heavily focused on looking back at sort of, what's happened over the last 12 months, what happened last month. Not really very forward thinking, although they'd like to be more forward thinking. A little bit about myself. So I've worked for the NHS for 16 years, primarily as a business intelligence developer. So mainly working in SQL, SQL, Power BI, and SSRS, SQL Server reporting services. So I've been doing that for about 16 years. To be honest, it was getting a little bit boring, I have to be honest. And I was at a point where I really needed to shake things up and make a change. I do like to think outside the box. I like to automate. I don't like to have things that I have to hold on to and do every month. I just find that really boring and unstimulating. So if I can automate something and I can find a different way of doing something, I will always try and find it. I've absolutely had no experience of coding in Python whatsoever prior to HSMA. It was all completely new to me. But I did have a really strong desire to learn because, as I say, I was getting bored and I wanted to do something different. So at the moment, I'm currently seconded to the performance and transformation functions within our trust. Again, like I mentioned earlier, trying to shift us to a more forward-thinking approach to how we use data and how we plan. I came across HSMA while I was looking for Python courses, and I thought it looked really, really interesting. And I went to my boss, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm really up for that. I think we could really benefit from both you and for us as a trust. So I'm happy for you to take the day a week and go and do that." So it's good that I had that support. So a little bit about the HSMA experience. So I have to say, initially I was quite daunted, and at first I did find it a bit overwhelming and quite difficult, particularly because I'd no experience of Python before. But that did get settled down, and once I was a couple of weeks in, I was really, really excited about what was to come. The stuff we were learning was just really, really interesting, exactly the direction that I wanted to go in. So it was really exciting to see what you could do with this type of coding. So the learning rate was fast. I didn't find it overly so. I had quite a bit of support from people within my peer support group, which was really, really helpful, and also from the tutors, and that managed, helped me sort of keep along with the rate of learning. And I did do a little bit afterwards in the evenings and things just to remind myself and reinforce what I'd learned that day. Okay. So I did find the resources extremely helpful. The class exercises were always really easy to follow, and I could really, really see applications in my daily work. Every time I finished a day of HSMA, I was thinking, I can use that. How can I get this into my work? How can I get the boss to let me try this? So definitely real world applications. Really, really wide range of topics, which kept it really interesting and engaging. Gave you so many tools that you could use to tackle so many different problems. So a bit about my HSMA project. So initially it started as a machine learning exercise, and I wanted to look at whether we could predict whether a patient would attend or not attend for an ADHD diagnostic appointment. It was just something that came to my mind, and I thought, I wonder if we can pick out any trends and patterns. So the service had a long held theory that travel time and distance was having an impact, but this was untested. So I thought I'll see if I can have a go at that, because some of the stuff that we've done at HSMA lent itself to that. So I actually took the code that was given to us using something called Routing Pi, which we covered in one of the modules. And I then built my own library of code from that. And so what it would do, it would gather a set of start and end postcodes, get the coordinates for them, pass them through to Routing Pi in batches, and then pass back the results and then store that data. So I could then use that. So I could get the travel time and distance for every appointment over a 12-month period. I then fed this data around travel time and distance, along with some other features, things like age, ethnicity, gender, deprivation index, into various machine learning models. And I did find that there was some correlation over travel time and travel time and distance, but the main feature that seemed to stick out was deprivation, and that was way, way out there. And so this sparked off a lot of conversations around satellite clinics and hard to reach communities and things like that. And a spin-off from that is that the ADHD service have now set up some satellite clinics in more deprived areas. So I'll talk about that later in the impact. I also then decided to look at the actual diagnostic pathway itself using discrete event simulation. This presented some challenges, particularly because the service was going through a lot of change. There was a lack of clarity around what the pathway actually should be and in what order they should do things. They were not even sure what the acceptance criteria for somebody coming into the service were, what the age cohort should be, and what the criteria should be. So it was difficult because it probably wasn't the right service to do. They just weren't really ready. And I did learn that very quickly, but I did push through with it and carried on with it, and I saw it through to sort of a finished project. But we're just waiting for a proposal to go to board at the minute to look at a full service redesign, and at which point I'll then revisit the app that I've built and map it to this new pathway. So then leading on to an organisational project. So this was something that my boss, on the back of what I'd done for ADHD, wanted me to look at. So he was interested in looking at our talking therapy service. So for people that aren't familiar with talking therapies, it's a low-level mental health treatment service for people with things like anxiety and depression. The government identified that people were getting a lot worse before they actually got into mental health treatment, and they were needed to target them earlier. So they decided to target them with these low-level mental health treatments. So it's things like anxiety, depression, and treatments like cognitive behavioural therapy and counselling. So I've covered that. So one of the benefits with doing it with this service was it's a nationally defined treatment pathway. So you already know how the service should be run. So that made it a lot easier. It was a lot more ready. And also the service has done a lot of the underlying work to actually understand the pathway and things like how their job plans fitted into that pathway. And they were really, really keen to engage. Which made things so much easier. So I had an initial meeting to get an understanding of the service, and I set up fortnightly follow-up meetings, and I had named team leaders who were really responsive, and if I had a question, I could just fire them a message and they'd get straight back to me. So it kept things moving forward. I think the key things they wanted to understand were what was the likely impact of potential staff reduction due to financial challenges that we were being presented with. And then also, what was the likely impact of a possible increase in referral rates from GPs, particularly due to the socioeconomic climate? Obviously, people are under a lot more pressure these days financially because of rising costs. And obviously, there was still the sort of impacts of COVID, and that was still feeding through into the system. Now, I did actually have a slight misunderstanding with the service around what the resources were for my model, but it did actually lead to I saw it as a benefit in the end, so I'll talk about that a little bit further. So the approach that I took, I used a SimPy discrete event simulation to model both the assessment and treatment pathway. I will say I definitely will do more planning in future as it's grown quite organically. So there's been lots of little spin-offs and ideas that I've had. So I do think I need to plan a lot more before I actually start coding. It was really challenging. There's a lot of moving parts, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't do another one like this with so many bells and whistles. But it was a challenge just to try and have a go at everything, and I did really enjoy that. It also overcomes data quality issues as you're not particularly reliant on using historical data. All you need is some basic things around referral rates and things like that, and then a good understanding of how the pathway works. One of the things was I wanted to include waiting lists. That was really hard because we had multiple start points. So I did find that really challenging, but I did manage to crack that in the end. And also I've rendered the results using Streamlit, which is another thing that we cover in one of the HSMA modules. And I've used a module, Plot Me Express, to plot this in charts and allow, so it's got multiple inputs, so you could do lots of what-if type analysis. Okay, so I'll take you over to the app now. Just bear with me. Okay, can you see that screen with the code?
Yeah, that's come through okay, Heath.
Okay, great, no problem. So there's two parts to the code. There's the app itself, and then there's sorry, not the app itself, the code itself, which actually does the discrete event simulation. I won't go through this in detail because there's a lot of code. There's let's have a look. I think it's about 3,000 lines of code. So it's just going to look a bit slow here. Yeah, nearly 3,500 lines of code for that. And again, this was all coded. I had no previous experience of coding in Python. I've just learned all this as I've gone along using what was in the modules and then modifying it to what I wanted to do. And then you've got the actual app itself, which is, again, is another 3,000 lines of code. I'll take you over to the app now. Okay, so this is the app itself. Can somebody just give me an idea of time, just because I can't see the timings at the moment, Dan?
You've got 5 minutes left.
Okay, so you've got lots and lots of inputs down the left-hand side. So things like the number of referrals. So you put in the average number, and what I've done is I've done some calculations in the background. This introduces some seasonality based on historical data, so that you get some fluctuations in the demand that's coming in. Got things like you can input your current waiting lists, what the current waiting time is, what percentage of referrals get rejected, lots and lots of different things you can try. Probably too many, to be fair. And also what patients, these are the actual pathways. So what percentage go down which parts of the pathways. Again, what the waiting list is, current waiting list is for that part of the pathway. You can set those to 0 if you want to start from scratch. How many minutes it takes for various things like the first appointment, the follow-up appointment, what percentage of patients don't attend for their appointments. So that's step 2 part of the pathway. You've got the step 3 part of the pathway, which does the same sorts of things. You've got some job plan inputs, which looks at how many staff you've got, what the likely change is going to be to those staff numbers, what their caseload can be. Now, I mentioned this earlier, so I originally put the caseload in as the resource, and it turns out that that wasn't the resource as such. It's something they like to be mindful of, that they don't have to do too many on their caseload. But the actual resource is the number of first and follow-up appointments. Now, this actually gave me the opportunity, because you could actually use both. You could run the service and say, what if we capped the caseload? At the moment, I've maxed it out, so it will take plenty of patients. But you could limit this and say, once you've got so many patients on your caseload, stop taking them on. Don't process them through treatment. But this is the main one I'm using, which is the number of first appointments we offer a week, which is patients that are starting treatment. And then finally, you've got some simulation parameters. So the number of weeks you want to run it for and how many simulation runs. I've kept it quite basic here. I've just run it for two runs. So these are the actual outputs that you get. So you've got your referrals coming in per week with the seasonality. These are the ones that have been rejected of those coming in. These are the ones that have been accepted. And then these are your waiting times for assessment. So we've got a waiting list. So at first, obviously, patients are waiting up to 8 weeks, but very quickly it gets down and gets pretty close to 0. And so you can see there, you started with a waiting list of 181, and then very quickly that's got down to pretty much 0. So there's no waiting list at the front door. And then there's 2 main targets they look at, and that's referral to assessment. So it gives you a percentage that are hitting referral to assessment within 6 weeks. There's a national target of 75%, but they're hitting 100 here, no problem at all. And then they've also got this thing called prevalence, which is sort of the numbers coming in treatment versus how many you would expect based on the population size. And there's a national target for to hit for prevalence. So that's the start of the pathway, the assessment part. And then you've got your step 2. So these are the sessions that have been run through the simulation. So you've got your firsts and your follow-ups. And then you've also got your DNAs of those firsts and follow-ups. The number of patients that were waiting, you see very quickly, there's loads of resource for this part of the pathway. So they very quickly get it down to 0. The waiting times get down to 0. The groups, what it does like a little loop, and it basically fills up a group and then runs it, fills up a group, runs it. So you'll get little waits building up of a couple of weeks while a group fills up. As soon as a group's full, it runs it, goes back down to 0, and it waits for the next group to fill up.
Just saying, you've got a minute and a half left.
Right, okay, no problem. I'll very quickly get through the other parts. So that's the step 2 part of the pathway. You've got the step 3, which is very similar. And one of the problems we've got is resource in the depression counselling part. So you get waiting lists building up here, and we've had some good impacts from looking at this model. You've got your referral to treatment times, things like your job plans, which is what your staff are actually saying they're doing and how busy they are. And then finally, you can look at their caseloads and whether they're hitting the upper threshold of the caseloads. So I'll quickly go back to my presentation. Okay. Okay, so in terms of impact, so it's the first time our trust has had access to this type of resource. We've always had to rely on things that have been given to us nationally. They're using very, very simplistic Excel models. These are really, really oversimplified and so not really practical as far as I'm concerned. This is just getting this data science in front of people. It's really increased awareness substantially. I've got lots of positive feedback, future demand. Services have started using the resources and they start to think differently about how they work. Opening satellite clinics, thinking about how patients access the service. We're currently undergoing a restructure and we're getting a new data warehouse. And we've been talking about having a data science role for quite a number of years. It's just never happened. And then all of a sudden we have a restructure and we've got this new role, evaluation and insights, which is actually specifically focused on data science and transformation. And even though we're actually facing job cuts, this job is actually at a higher band, which I was really surprised at. So they've obviously seen the value of what data science can offer for them. Just finally summing up, I have to say that HSMA, it's been the best learning experience I've ever had. I really feel confident and empowered in what I'm doing in my job, and I've just got a huge thanks to Dan and Sammy for that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Heath.
Sorry
Yeah,
if that was a bit fast. I do get a bit.
no, that's okay. No worries at all. And yeah, no, fantastic. It's been great to hear about all the work that you've done there, and also, it's such a wonderful story of engagement from your organisation right from the start and carrying through. I mean, the fact that you've got this new role that's come about as a result of your work, I think is absolutely amazing. And as you say, a real testament to the value they've placed on this kind of work in the future. So
Yeah, I mean, I've got jobs queuing up at the door now. Honestly, it's just getting out of hand.
yes, you may have an opposite problem now. So, fantastic. Thank you very much, Heath.